Today, we're going to talk about weight loss, what works, what doesn't work, and what can actually hurt you if you're not careful. When it comes to losing weight, there is no shortage of advice out there. Some of it's good, some of it is not so good, and some of it is downright dangerous. So if you are feeling overwhelmed and confused by all the options that you see out there, you are not alone. What we want to talk about today is to help you cut through the confusion and the things that get in the way. We're going to break down what works, what is hype, and what methods might actually be harmful to your health. If you're just getting started with weight loss, congratulations. Welcome on board. Maybe you're a nutrition veteran and you just need to fine tune some stuff. Either way, we are here to help you make safe, smart, and effective choices. So we're going to dive into some of the most popular methods that people use for weight loss and some of the frequently asked questions that we hear from people in general. We're going to start first with intermittent fasting. So if you are familiar, you know that intermittent fasting is a time-restricted eating. Basically, you go through periods of time throughout the day where you do not eat and scheduled periods where you do eat. A common window is eating between, say, 12 noon and 6 p.m., and the rest of the time you are not eating, i.e. fasting, intermittently. This is a proven strategy for weight loss. By limiting the eating window, you naturally consume fewer calories. You know, if you think about it, only eating between 12 and 6 p.m. is basically a fancy term. Intermittent fasting is a fancy term for skipping breakfast and snacks. There are some good health benefits that have clinically been proven in the research for intermittent fasting, so it's not a bad idea unless you are a person who is, number one, diabetic or struggles with blood sugar issues, or if you are a person who typically struggles with food cravings that are very strong, overeating in general. Because if you go long periods of if you go long periods of time without food, that can trigger binges. So if you are blood sugar sensitive, diabetic or blood sugar sensitive, or if you have strong cravings, intermittent fasting is probably not for you. Calorie counting. In a nutshell, when you really dumb down weight loss, you have to burn more calories than you eat. So it's a very simple concept. The reason that weight loss gets complicated is because what our bodies do with the food that we do consume varies widely based on your metabolism and your health and how your exercise is put together and all of that. So calorie tracking and calorie counting is not really sexy, but it's one of the most tried and true methods for losing weight. If you do it right, it can be a game changer, but you have to do it consistently, and that is really important. So there are formulas that you can find on the internet, the Harris-Benedict equation, the Mifflin-St. Jean equation. I've got those in the article here below if you are a numbers nerd. But a simple way to do it is to use one of the calorie counting apps. MyFitnessPal is free and easy. There is an app called Lose It that tracks calories pretty well. Some people like to go old school and do a pen and paper food journal and do it that way. Look up your food on either the labels that are on the food or in an online calorie database. I've got some links in the article below for that. Regardless of what method you pick, the key to success with calorie tracking is you have to do it consistently and you have to be 100% accurate and honest with what is going into your mouth. The next topic I want to touch on is low carb dieting, including ketogenic diets. Cutting back on calories is a very simple way to reduce your calories and to control your blood sugar better, because as you may or may not know, when you ingest a large number of carbohydrates, your blood sugar will spike up. So when you have fewer carbohydrates, your insulin spikes and your blood sugar tend to be more level. So, you know, as a concept, it's not a bad idea. On the plus side, the low carb and ketogenic diets will improve your blood sugar. Like I just mentioned, they have been shown to reduce triglyceride levels. Also, can be very beneficial for people who have diabetes or blood sugar control issues. And low carb dieting is actually shown to reduce some of the inflammatory markers also, like cytokine production, if you're a biochemistry nerd. On the downside of the low carb diets, sometimes, especially if you go the very, very low carbohydrate diets like keto, you can trigger a deficiency in certain essential vitamins and minerals, and especially fiber. We need plants to be healthy. So, one of the extreme low carb diets is carnivore diet, where it's basically all meat and fat and virtually no plant material. And that is not a great way to treat your body because we do need plants. There's a ton of phytonutrients and other important nutrients, minerals, and vitamins and fiber that we have to have from plants. Another downside to the low carb eating is osteoporosis. Long-term adherence to keto diets has been linked to decreased bone density and an increase in fractures. So if you are at risk for osteoporosis or bone density, make sure that you are eating enough plant material. Lastly, a lot of people struggle with brain drain and crabbiness, bad mood swings when their carbohydrate intake is very, very low. And so your brain doesn't necessarily work great without adequate carbohydrate intake. It can impair memory and cognitive function. So overall, cutting back on carbohydrates can be a good strategy, but it has to be done the right way. That's why you need to consult a nutrition professional to help you do it with caution and consider the potential risks and benefits to weigh those. Weight Watchers is a very popular weight loss program, both for women and for men, because it combines two of the most important components of successful weight loss. Number one, like we talked about before, calories. Weight Watchers is really based on portion control and calorie control. Every food and beverage is assigned a point value based on its nutritional content and its total calories. So that's how they work their system, and it's great for that. The other thing that Weight Watchers, which I guess is now called WW, which is harder to say than Weight Watchers. I'm not sure why they decided to change the name, but in any case, they have a nice community. There are literally millions of members. One of the hallmarks of the program is a supportive community and the infrastructure that they have built around that. They've got weekly meetings that I think they now call workshops. They do them by Zoom or in person. They generally have an experienced person who leads those groups. So they're great for accountability and encouragement and practical tips. So we can give a thumbs up to Weight Watchers overall. The last way that I'm going to talk about today, that's a common method for people to try to lose weight, is cutting out sugar and processed foods. So this is not a bad idea if you're trying to lose weight. One of the no-brainer things is to eat less junk food. As nutrition coaches, we definitely are going to work with you in that regard. So reducing your sugar intake and having fewer ultra-processed foods is a really easy way to upgrade your diet. Shameless plug, I happen to be the guy that wrote Beating Sugar Addiction for Dummies, so I have a thing or two to say about teaching you how to eat less sugar. Also, the processed foods concept. The more we study nutrition, the more we realize that whole foods and natural foods are better. The fewer chemicals and the fewer processing that the food goes through is better. So real food is better than fake food is your takeaway, I guess. There's a real genius insight. Some of the big things that we try to get people to avoid eating or really minimize is sugared soda, fast food, obviously, fried foods, things like that. Candy and sweets, they're yummy, but they have very little in the way of nutrients, and they're super high in sugar and inflammatory compounds, so we try to minimize that. All your processed meats, hot dogs, cured pepperonis, and deli meats are high in sodium and preservatives, and they often have carcinogenic nitrites in them, so all the processed meats are not great. And we try to get people to eat a higher protein breakfast in general. You know, a lot of the sugary breakfast cereals are just processed grains that are loaded with extra sugar, sometimes even artificial flavors. So one of my other books, another shameless plug, is Breakfast Express, which is 10 minutes or less for healthy, high protein breakfast. So that's enough of me talking about my books. I want to get back to the weight loss concepts. The weight loss drugs, GLP-1 medications, glucagon-like peptide is the acronym for that. These are the new kids on the block for weight loss. They become popular because they do two things very well. Number one, they help to regulate appetite. And two, they also regulate insulin production so that it levels out your blood sugar. So these drugs stimulate the receptors in the brain to promote a feeling of fullness, which of course leads to reduced hunger and lower calories. So you eat less when you take these drugs, or you want to eat less typically. They also happen, just if you're a science nerd, they slow what's called gastric emptying, which is the speed of how stuff moves through your stomach and digestive system. So it helps you feel full sooner. Um, Losing between 5 and 15% of your initial body weight is to be expected with these medications. So there are other positive outcomes also with these GLP-1 medications. Beyond weight loss, they have shown that most patients who take these also improve other health markers, including blood sugar, blood pressure, lower cholesterol, and triglycerides. None of this is really surprising. When you lose body fat and get down to a more healthy weight, all of your health markers are going to improve. So none of that is shocking. However, the weight loss drugs do come with some potential negative side effects, and I want to make sure you're aware of them. Other than the common intestinal symptoms, you know, your GI symptoms of nausea, diarrhea, constipation, stomach discomfort, that sort of stuff. There is also a noted increased risk of thyroid tumors, thyroid cancer. So there is a consideration, especially if you have a history of thyroid or pancreatic disease. You want to be extra careful and really do some good consultation before you consider taking these medications. One more takeaway for you specifically about the weight loss drugs. If you're overeating because you're hungry, like portion control is your biggest problem, then you may be a good candidate for these medications because they will help control your appetite from a pharmaceutical standpoint. However, if your overeating is a result of stress eating or emotional eating, you're not eating because you're hungry. So these medications are probably not going to help avoid these emotional eating triggers, because the drugs work on appetite and blood sugar control. And if you're overeating from stress eating or from emotional eating triggers, you know, it's not because you're hungry that you're overeating. So that's something else to keep in mind when it comes to consulting with your physician about these particular kind of drugs. Okay, that's all I got to say today. My name is Dan DeFigio. I am the owner and director of Basics and Beyond Fitness and Nutrition in Nashville. I am a certified personal trainer, certified health coach in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm here to help you. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you.